Good morning. Good morning once again. My name is Letitia Ooko. I work in the Corporate Communications Department at the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. And on behalf of the authority, I'd like to very warmly welcome all of you. And thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. Before we begin, I would like to request you that tusimame tafadhali ili tuweze kuimba wimbo wa taifa kwa lugha ya Kiswahili, aya ya kwanza peke yake. Ee Mungu nguvu yetu, ilete baraka kwetu, haki iwe ngao na mlinzi, na tukae na undugu, amani na uhuru, raha tupate na ustawi. Thank you. Beautiful singing. Thank you. So if you have your program with you, you will see that our first agenda is for us to get to know each other a little better. We are not too many, so we will do some very quick, brief introductions so we know who is in the room. The gentleman standing has a roaming mic, so as the Bible says, the last will be first. Tutaanza na kule nyuma. Your name, please, and the organization you represent. Thank you.
My name is Festus Member from Kaimosi Renewable Energy Plant.
My name is Victor Mutwiri from Unipe Association.
Good morning. My name is Irene Kemadi from Unipe Association.
Good morning. My name is Doreen from Unipe Association.
I'm Stephen Moshero from Galana Energies.
I am Abdi Hakim from Pitot Energy.
Good morning, Makbul Saad from Agol.
Morning, I'm Joseph Ferry from EPRA.
Morning, Simon Maina, Foursquare Consultant Limited.
Morning, I'm Eric Muruka from Class International Limited.
Good morning, I'm Randall James from Kenya Pipeline.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yunus Mohammed from Kenya Pipeline Company.
Good morning, I am Susan Shihugwa from Kenya Pipeline.
Morning, Simon Asava, Alliance of Residents Association.
Morning, everyone. My name is Samuel Obiero. I'm here representing Kenya Peasants League.
Good morning, I'm Julie Songok, EPRA.
Good morning, I'm Brenda Kilui from Bongani Energy.
Good morning, I'm Melana Malwa, no organization.
Good morning. I'm David Olande from Nestle Consultants.
Morning to all. My name is George Onyango from George's Oil Dealers Limited.
Good morning. Michael Saruni, Fastnet Energy.
I'm Joseph Trop from Fastnet Energy.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Fadhili Mohammed from Bungela Mwananchi.
Good morning. I'm Roy Gituma from EPRA.
Good morning. I'm Martin Moriaki from Total Energies.
Good morning. My name is Wanambisi from After Petroleum.
Good morning. Peter Mecha from Petrocity.
Good morning. I'm Jen Mwasi from EPRA.
Yes, good morning. I'm Mr. Leonard from Leo Energy.
Good morning, Beatrice from E3 Energy.
Good morning, Rose Chege, Lukman Petroleum.
Issa Mohammed from Civil Society.
Good morning, Milo Celestine, Independent Petroleum.
Annington Karanja from Simasi Investments.
Faris Delight Ventures East Africa.
Michael Makori from Greenwich Pan, Shell Limited.
My name is Kasuja Onyonyi from Kenya Pipeline.
Patrick Watene from Adach Polymer.
Joyce Karanja from the East African Business Times.
Rebecca Kibego from Kenya News Agency.
Patience Mabonga from Kenya News Agency.
Ivan Sakach, Oryx Energy.
Good morning, Elizabeth Kagiri, DC Energy.
Good morning, Mary Paul, Silver Society.
Morning, George Gakambi, SciTech Kenya.
Good morning, Mohammed Mahmoud from Jamia Mosque Organization.
Good morning, Alois Chami, investor.
Good morning, everyone. Mohammed Ahmed, East Africa Petroleum Transporters Association.
Good morning, Samuel Wenena, Current Technologies.
Good morning, my name is Caleb Ngala, representing Muungano na Vijiji and also a director of Light of Hope.
John, Fossil Supplies.
Good morning, my name is Jacinta Seko from Kenya Pipeline Company.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jambo. My name is Joshua Adem from Public Health.
Good morning. My name is Paul Nzioki from EPRA.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sheila Tonui from EPRA.
Good morning. My name is Brian Kibet from EPRA.
Good morning, Elizabeth Akinyi, Kenya Pipeline.
Good morning, everyone. Abdullah Omar, EPRA.
Hamjambo nyote. My name is Lona Diagon from EPRA as well.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Stella Opakas from EPRA.
Good morning, everyone. Wawero Karanja, EPRA.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pius Mwendo. I'm from Kenya Pipeline.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jacinta Ndugira from Asharami.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rafael Maina, Galana.
Good morning. My name is Monica Were, Vivo Energy.
Osia, introduce yourself.
Mosia Mwanje from EPRA.
Thank you. Once again, thank you very much for taking the time to be here with you today. We'll try and keep the program as short and sweet as possible. If you look at your program, you'll see that it's time to get opening remarks from our Director General, who unfortunately could not be here today due to exigencies of work. But we are in the able hands of Mr. Waweru Karanja, who will read the speech on his behalf. Waweru, karibu.
Thank you very much, Letitia. Good morning once again, everyone. You don't sound lively. You sound very quiet. I thought there was coffee outside this morning. Good morning again. As Letitia has said, my name is Wawero. I work for the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. We're very happy to be with you today. And we look forward to having fruitful deliberations. I've had quite a cross-section of attendees today. We have our oil marketers. We have members from the civil society. We have members from the Department of Public Health. Asanteni sana kwa kuja leo kuwa nasi. We really appreciate it. And before I read the remarks on behalf of my Director General, I'd just like to emphasize that the purpose of today is enshrined in the Constitution of Kenya. When we're making laws, regulations, when we're setting prices and tariffs, we do not just do it without consulting Mwananchi. And this is the reason we're here today. We're here to consult. Please feel free to give your opinions, your feedback. Msiseme hatukuwashauri. Sawa? So, I'm going to briefly read the remarks from Mr. Daniel Kipto Bagoria, the Director General of the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Members of Kenya Pipeline Company, karibuni sana. Industry stakeholders present, members of the Fourth Estate, members of civil society, our oil marketing companies, and even people who are attending here at your own capacity as investors, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. It is with utmost gratitude that I welcome every participant to today's workshop. The purpose of the workshop is to deliberate on a matter of national importance, and this is the Kenya Pipeline Company import handling, primary storage, and truck loading tariffs. As you are aware, Kenya Pipeline Company manages several common user petroleum logistics facilities that are crucial to the storage, transportation, and distribution of petroleum products across Kenya. These include the pipeline network, the storage depots, the jetties, and the loading terminals. KPC charges a tariff for the usage of its infrastructure, and these tariffs are reviewed and approved every 3 years through a public participatory process facilitated by us, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Under the Energy Act of Kenya 2019, EPRA is mandated to ensure fair and reasonable tariffs for KPC's services. Further, Section 11B of the Act empowers the authority to set, review, and approve tariffs and contracts related to common user petroleum facilities and products. In addition, Section 10HH mandates EPRA to protect the interests of consumers, investors, and other stakeholders. Section 163(4), ladies and gentlemen, further clarifies that tariffs must be just and reasonable, and that they must ensure all licensees like KPC can maintain their financial integrity, attract capital, operate efficiently, and fairly compensate investors for the risks assumed. This process, ladies and gentlemen, is why we are here today. Ladies and gentlemen, to provide a brief background, we have invited you to give comments on a tariff application sent to us on the 28th of March 2024, seeking a review of the existing import handling, primary storage, and truck loading tariff, which we approved in July 2021. This approval was for the tariff control period covering 2021 to 2024. The current tariff has since lapsed and was extended for a period ending this November 2024 before the new tariffs take effect. It is important to note that all refined petroleum products imported into the country, i.e. premium motor spirit, PMS, petrol, automotive gas oil, diesel, and dual-purpose kerosene, DPK, come through the Kipevu oil terminal. These products are then discharged into the primary storage facilities, i.e. the Kipevu oil storage facility, better known to the veterans of the industry as KOSOF or KOSF, Kenya Petroleum Refinery Limited, as well as the privately owned VTTI Kenya terminal based in Mombasa. In addition, KPRL has petroleum products truck loading and LPG import handling facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, KPC uses the rate of return approach in its determination of tariffs. This method involves calculating the allowed rate of return on KPC's regulated assets, considering factors such as depreciation, operating costs, and throughput projections. For the control period 24-25 to 26-27, KPC has proposed tariff increases for its import handling and primary storage services. These increases would be 24% in 24-25, followed by 8% in 25-26, and 1% in 26-27. Additionally, KPC has proposed a 25% increase in truck loading tariffs for 24-25, followed by a 5% increase in 25-26 and a 5% decrease in the subsequent years. These proposed tariff amendments are based on KPC's assessment of its costs, which they will be coming up here to tell us in a few minutes, and the need to maintain a fair rate of return on its regulated assets. Overall, the proposed tariff review has the potential to have a significant impact on the Kenya
EPRA, our customers, the oil marketing companies, the fourth estate, all protocols observed. I think we are here for a very critical reason. And this for purposes of just bringing our minds together, reasoning together, so that we can be able to make our country better. I think as KPC, we do, like EPRA has alluded, we do subject our tariffs through EPRA, just as is required in the Constitution. I think shortly my colleague will be sharing how we've come up with the tariff. And as you realize at the beginning of the tariff period, it's usually slightly higher. Then as we progress, it goes decreasing. And this is essentially because we need to invest. And then after we invest, we are able to deliver the fuel to the required destination as and when it's required. One of the things that we do as a company is we try as much as possible to leverage on efficiencies. And that is why even as you give us the tariff, you need to hold us to account in terms of ensuring that we give you efficient services. Because you know, when you give us the tariff, we invest, and then it's our duty to ensure that we give you back in terms of efficient services. So my plea is today, let's engage, let's raise the issues, and let's walk this journey together. Otherwise, we are happy, and we are here to serve you. Thank you, and have a good session.
Thanks a lot, Pius. So mine is a very simple task. And as I've said before, I'm happy to see every one of you. I think we have quite a diverse representation from the industry, the public, for the state. I heard about some, lobby groups? So I think the main reason why we are here is to solicit feedback from the public and the stakeholders. KPC did make an application for a tariff that is on the 28th of March 2024. And one of the mandates of EPRA is to review and approve the tariff for common user facilities. And in doing so, the requirement of the Constitution is that we need to engage the public, solicit their feedback before we make that tariff determination. So the tariff we are going to be looking at today is imports handling, primary storage and truck loading tariff application made by KPC. We'll not be looking at the transportation or rather the pipeline tariff. So as I've mentioned, this is an application for a 3-year period, that is from 2024, 2025 up to 2026, 2027. So I urge you to listen to the KPC presentation, which will be made by, I believe that will be Elizabeth. Interrogate the numbers. They'll be showing you the need, or rather the justification for them asking for that tariff review for the control period that I've mentioned. What they need to invest on, the kind of operations and maintenance they are going to be taking, and of course the projections of the throughput, which forms the basis for the numbers they are going to give you. You see, as we are reviewing this tariff, we are meant to balance the interest of both the public and the investor. You have KPC here who's going to be making investments, and you need to ensure that out of those investments they are making, they're able to provide you with a service, efficient service delivery, and of course they need to make a return on the investments that they're making. Well, at the same time, you need to ensure that the consumer is not burdened, or rather the consumer is paying for the true cost of provision of that service. If you look at the Energy Act, I think that is Section 10H, which ensures that mandates EPRA to protect the interest of the investors and the consumers and other stakeholders. And I think it's at the backbone of those provisions that we are gathered here today to have a look at KPC presentation. As I mentioned, they made this application on March 2024. We've been having discussions, engagements with KPC, but that is not to say that a decision has been made yet. We are still in that process of review, almost at the tail end of the process, and that is why we are here to solicit feedback that is going to inform the decision that will eventually be made by the authority. So I'll request us to be very keen, and as KPC is making their presentation, so that when we do plenary much later on, we are able to get feedback from you, the stakeholders. And that feedback is what will inform the decision that we are going to have eventually. This tariff is going to affect us for the next 3 or so years, up to around 2027. So we need to be sure that we make a very concise and a concise decision, because it's something that we are going to live with for the next 3 years. So I think with that, I would be asking KPC to come over and do their presentation. So let's be keen and pay attention to the KPC presentation. Thank you.
Great. Good morning. Habari asubuhi. My name is Elizabeth, as has been mentioned, and I'll be here to present on behalf of KPC the application that we have made for review of the import handling and primary storage tariff, as well as the truck loading tariff at KPRL, where we offer truck loading services for the coast region. We are grateful to EPRA for allowing us this opportunity, and also the oil industry, your support this far in our business, and even for joining us in this discussion, and the stakeholders as well. We are happy indeed to present the numbers to you, because as required of us, we need to be transparent so that we all understand as we pay for the pump, for the fuel, what really goes into it. So I'll give highlights of the application. The application was much more detailed than this. It had detailed numbers and models, but for purposes of our engagement this morning, we'll just look at the high level ask that we have presented. My presentation is threefold. First, we'll have an overview of KPC. I'm sure the industry understands KPC quite well, but we are cognizant of the fact that we have other stakeholders who probably have not engaged with us in the past, and you need to understand when you talk about KPC, what is the infrastructure that we are operating. Then we'll just have an overview of the current tariff, or rather the tariff that has lapsed in June and has been extended to November. And then we'll dive into the application that we have made. So KPC, I believe you all are aware, is government owned. We were established in 1973, but started commercial operations in 1978 after constructing the first pipeline from Mombasa to Nairobi. It was a 14-inch pipeline, served us quite well, and had to be retired in 2022 after it had outlived its economic life. We have recently acquired KPRL. The refineries stopped refining in 2013. Since then, we have been using their assets through a lease arrangement. But in October 2023, After going through a process where even the cabinet was involved, we eventually were able to acquire it. So KPRL is part of KPC as we speak. Our core mandate is basically to handle petroleum products. We receive them at the port. We all are aware that we don't refine any products, we don't produce any oil. So all the products that we consume are imported. We handle them at the coast, we transport them to the hinterland where the main market is. We store and then we deliver to our customers, who we then eventually are able to make it available to the consumers. As an organization, we may be a Kenyan organization, but we touch the regional market as well. So we do serve Uganda, northern Tanzania, a bit of it, then Rwanda, Burundi, Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Sudan. Our vision really is to be a premier oil and gas company, and that as we do that, we expect to transform lives, because indeed, without petroleum, as we know, as a commercial energy, really we cannot be able to grow at the levels that we require as an economy. So we do say that we are critical for the economy, and especially in the transport sector. So this is our network running from Mombasa all the way to Nairobi, Eldoret, and Kisumu. We have a loop of 1,342 kilometers of pipelines. Currently from Mombasa to Nairobi, we only have one pipeline, a 20-inch line. But from Nairobi to Eldoret, we have parallel lines. The first one constructed in 1994, and then a second one which was constructed much recently. And then to Kisumu, we also have parallel lines. We have storage facilities in Mombasa. That includes what is in KPRL, KOSUF, Kipevu Oil Storage Facility. We have a depot that serves the Moi International Airport. Then in Nairobi, we have a depot that serves Jomo Kenyatta Airport. We have the main depot at PS10, Nakuru, Eldoret, and Kisumu. We have truck loading facilities at the Western Kenya stations, Eldoret, Nakuru, and Kisumu. Then we also have hydrant system. The hydrant system is the system that is used to fuel products directly from the depot to the aircraft. So we have a hydrant system at Jomo Kenyatta, and we also have one at Moi International Airport. Then recently we did construct an oil jetty in Kisumu to facilitate the lake transport mode. So we currently are loading barges that then transport products into Uganda, because we have a complementary facility constructed by a stakeholder, a private sector, private investor in Uganda. That is the capacity of our lines. We currently are flowing at 1,300 cubic meters per hour from Mombasa to Nairobi, giving us giving the region about 10 million cubic meters per annum. So that is what we currently are able to handle. Nairobi to Eldoret, like I said, we have two lines. The first one is the one that was constructed in 1994. Is an 8 and 6 inch diameter pipeline, and is able to give us 1.8 million per annum. And the second one, constructed in 2011, line 4, is able to give us 2.9 million per annum. Then from Sinendet, that is where we have the diversion to, or the spur to Kisumu. We have two lines. The first one is a 6-inch line constructed in 1994, giving us 915,000 per annum, cubic meters per annum. And the second one, constructed in 2016, is a 10-inch line, which can give us 2.4 million per annum. So that is the capacity of the pipeline. That is what we are able to handle at the moment. Then in terms of storage, we've been able to increase our storage capacity over time. We currently have a capacity of about 1 million cubic meters, which is distributed within the country. The bulk of it, though, is in Mombasa, where we have the Kipevu Oil Storage Facility with capacity of holding 326,000, and then at KPRL Changamwe to 84,000. At KPRL Changamwe, the tanks initially, most of it were used for handling crude oil, but we have slowly been converting them to handle petroleum products, ultimately to just increase our capacity for imports handling. Then we have Nairobi, over 200. And then you can see Moi, of course it's a small airport, as much as it's an international airport. We don't have many flights into that airport, so the capacity there is not much, but it's sufficient to handle the requirements. We have Kisumu and Eldoret having about 45 to 48,000 storage capacity each. It's important for us to really appreciate that over time we have been bringing on board the KPRL storage capacity into the system. Initially, all of it was handling crude oil, but now we have converted them, and 284,000 is now being used for refined products. We still have about 100 at that particular facility in Changamwe. The total storage capacity there is 384,000. We've so far only onboarded 284, and there are plans to bring on board the balance. Then KPRL also have what we call Potries. Potries is a depot that they had which was much closer to the ocean, and we've been converting those tanks into white oil storage. We've done that. The project ended in June, and we are currently working on connecting that project or those facilities to the other infrastructure within the region, just to provide operational flexibility. Like I did mention, when we deliver the products into the various depots or terminal, we are then able to transfer them to the owners, who are the oil marketers. We have loading facilities in Western Kenya, but in Nairobi, the oil marketing companies have depots close to our Nairobi terminal, so we pump over the products to them, and they're the ones who then load the products into the trucks. Our clients, like we've said, are the oil marketing companies, because the product does not belong to KPC, the product belongs to them. It's important for us to appreciate that as KPC, we have two sets of tariff. We have the tariff that we are currently, which is the subject of discussion today, the import handling and primary storage tariff. The other tariff, which is actually the main tariff, is the transportation and secondary storage and truck loading tariff. So the truck loading and the tariff we are talking about today is not what is being charged in the hinterland, but it is what is being charged in the coast region. Just so that we can understand the infrastructure and the logistics better, we do have the Kipevu Oil Terminal. This is where the vessels berth. The terminal is owned by KPA, constructed and owned by KPA. I know the industry is aware. We initially used to have what in this illustration we are calling KOT1, the initial terminal, which could only berth one vessel. But KPA has since constructed a much bigger jetty, which is able to currently handle 3 vessels at a time. So when the vessels dock, we as KPC then, once the necessary checks have been done by KPA and the Port Health Authority, we move in to check the quality of the products and then align with the systems to receive the products as they are discharged from the vessel. So there is the line from KOT2, or rather the jetty, into Kipevu Oil Storage Facility, and in the near future into the Potries tanks, KPRL Potries tanks. And then some products also are received at VTTI, which is a private facility. And once the products are received in these facilities, then ultimately we do appreciate that the bulk of the market is in the hinterland, so they are pumped into Line 5, the Mombasa-Nairobi pipeline. Though within the region, the locality, we are also able to pump from one facility into another, just for operational flexibility. So for the purposes of discussions today, this is the facilities we are talking about, and these are the services that we are providing: handling of the imports, storage at COSUF and KPRL, and then truck loading at KPRL, and not the transportation of products, nor storage in the hinterland, and the truck loading in the hinterland. So what is the tariff, the current tariff, or the tariff that we had before the end of the control period? This was the tariff that was approved by EPRA in July 2021. I think by the time we were making this application, we did not get the opportunity to engage with the stakeholders, but the tariff was approved, and some adjustment done in October. But currently what we have, or what was in the just ended tariff control period, was, as is presented there, a tariff of $3.5 US per cubic meters in 2021-22. It then went down to $3.47 US per cubic meters in 2022-23. Then went up to 3.74 in 2023-24. For truck loading, the tariff was at $2.55 US per cubic meters, 2.77 in 2022-23, and 2.62 in 2023-24. In 2023-24. Now you can see that tariff fluctuates. It all depends on the inputs, depends on the assets, and it depends on the costs. That really goes into determining the final figure. In the just ended tariff control period, with what had been allowed us, we've been able to do quite a bit. There's some capital investments that have been done, but we just wanted to call out the major ones. We've been able to upgrade the truck loading facility at KPRL. What was there initially was what was constructed, I think, in 1963, and was quite old, and really was not able to serve the region well. There were efficiency and operational flexibility issues. So we've been able to construct, a new facility, and already it is loading products. As you can see, there are already trucks at that new truck loading facility. Then we already also have been able to construct an LPG truck loading facility. Initially, KPRL had storage facilities for LPG, but they were not able to load onto trucks, but were rather pumping the products over to the oil marketers' facilities. But then to open up the market, we thought it fit that we construct a truck loading facility so that more people can be able, more business or more OMCs can be able to access LPG through KPRL. So we've been able to construct that facility. It is available for use. We've been loading, though the business has not really been as we had initially expected, and we'll be coming to the industry to urge them to kindly take up and the use of this facility. Then we've been able to also rehabilitate the crude oil tanks at Port Reitz, like I earlier mentioned. So we've brought on board 100,000 meter cubes storage capacity, which is really going to unlock the current constraints that we do have for import handling, especially when we have to take out a tank for maintenance. The connectivity project is at 90%, scheduled to end by December. So once that is done, we'll see a lot of operational flexibility. Then lastly, we were able to also connect Changamwe, KPRL Changamwe, to line 5. Initially, it was only connected to line 1, but when line 1 was retired, then it meant we could not be able to pump products directly into the KPC main line, but had to go through COSUF, which was quite cumbersome. So you have been able to also connect, and currently, whatever products are received at Changamwe, we then pump them directly into our main line. So what is KPC asking for? I'll not go into this because this has already been mentioned, the fact that the application was made in March, We've had some engagements with EPRA who've drilled on the numbers and also kind of challenged us on some of them. And this, of course, stakeholder engagement is just required for us to be able to just be transparent and to hear from the industry what they think about what we have presented. Now, we have a tariff structure that is in the policy that we've used over the years and have been adopted by EPRA, even in the final determination of the tariff. And the structure really is based on the revenue that we require as KPC to do the business and also to earn a fair return on our investments. So the revenue requirement is based on the regulated asset base and the return on that, rate of return on that asset base, the expenditures that we incur for operating and maintaining, the depreciation aspect, provision, and then also allows for taxes. The tariff principles, these have also been discussed extensively with EPRA and a position given. Currently, we have what we call the working capital, which is based on a regulated asset base. When you talk about a regulated asset base, it means that not everything in our asset schedule is accepted. It has to be an asset that is used for the service for which we are seeking a tariff. And also it is a net book value of that asset, not any revaluation is allowed. Then in terms of the cash, we are only allowed 45 days operating and maintenance expenditure. And then the inventory is determined by, is based on the 1 to 2% of the regulated asset base. Capital structure is key in the model, in modeling for the tariff. And the structure allowed for the purposes of determining this tariff is 80% equity and 20% debt. Then the return on the equity portion of the asset is also given by EPRA. It is 10.5%. Then lastly, the weighted average cost of capital, which is also charged on the debt portion of the asset, is based on the interest rate for the loan that is prevailing for that facility. So what are the inputs? The first thing we normally consider is the asset base. And you can see from the table, we have presented to EPRA a net book value asset provision of 5.95 billion in 2023-24 for COSIF. That is what we currently have as our total assets at COSIF. And we are projecting it to go down. And the reason why it is going down is because of depreciation. Like I mentioned, the asset base is based on the net book value. And we are not planning any major investment in COSIF. That is why then the asset goes, the provision for asset goes down. And the projected asset base also in the subsequent years also then goes down. But for KPRL, we are currently at about 4.82 billion Kenya shillings, and we are projecting a growth. The growth is mainly a result of capitalization of the two main projects that I've mentioned, the Portrees connectivity and the conversion or rehabilitation of the Portrees tanks and other capex that are improvements of systems upgrades that have been done but are not really major. So you see then the asset base moving to 6.5 from 4.82 because of capitalization. And then in the subsequent year, we are also proposing one key project, and we are requesting that we be allowed to fully rehabilitate, rehabilitate and upgrade the systems within Changamwe, because they are old. They were installed in 1963. They were installed in 1963 and are not providing us the necessary efficiency. Sorry about that. Yes, so as that is being addressed, we've made a proposal that we be allowed to rehabilitate the Changamwe facility further, upgrade the intertank and pipelines and valves, and also to upgrade the line that is connecting that facility to KOT2. The line currently is a 12-inch line, and is not able to provide us the flexibility we require. When a vessel discharges from KOT2, it's able to discharge at a rate of up to 4,000 cubic meters per hour. But because of the line constraints, then KPRL Changamwe can only receive at less than 1,000 cubic meters per hour. What that then means is that a vessel will take much longer if discharging into Changamwe, and that results into damage. So this is one thing that we'd want to address, because we'd want a situation where when vessels dock, they don't take time, but rather they are able to discharge on schedule without any constraints. And we hope and we do believe that once this is done, we'll be able to bring down damage substantially. I think you'll just allow me to just pause there and allow the system to be sorted out, because it's very difficult to present numbers if you are not also looking at them. I think we can continue. So as a result of what I've talked about, the rehabilitation of Changamwe and the line, we are then looking at a growth in asset for KPRL to 8.6 billion Kenya shillings in 2025-26, and in the last year then, of course, the depreciation then impacts, and you see a drop of 7.9. The asset base for the truck loading facility, like I mentioned, we did not have one. The one we had was quite old. It was about 48 million, but with the new investment, we are looking at an asset base of 450 million, which is going up to 52 because of additional investment that we need to make it more efficient. And lastly, in 2026-27, then depreciation kicks in, and we see then a drop in that asset base. So that is it in terms of the asset, but just important to mention that currently it's estimated that the demurrage cost that we incur for the entire, all the products that come into the country is about 17 million. So you see, if we have the infrastructure improvements that we're talking about, we should be able to bring down this figure, which usually really is passed on to the consumers. Operating expenses, we've used the 2022-23 as our base year and grown most of the operational expenses by 10%, except for maintenance. The maintenance really cannot be pegged on or really cannot be subjected to just a growth rate, because it depends on the tanks and the extent of work that needs to be carried out. With onboarding of potteries, we'll now have flexibility to be able to maintain and rehabilitate the tanks at Kossuth, because previously it was quite a task to get a tank out for maintenance because it would cause shortages in the region. But now we expect that we'll be able to rehabilitate tanks as scheduled, and we are looking at rehabilitating 4 number tanks at Kossuth and 2 number tanks at KPRL. So the total expenditures are as projected, and for truck loading, normally it's about 6.8% of the total KPRL OPEX. Then lastly, the last key input is on the throughput projections. How are we seeing the market grow? We are projecting the market to currently be at 9.5 total imports for local consumption and even for the region. The transit products that are received at Mombasa for the region, we are aware that we get competition from the port of Dar es Salaam. So most of the products that go to Burundi and Rwanda go through the port of Dar es Salaam, but we still do handle some of their products, including Uganda, which is our major transit destination. So when we combine what we was actually brought in 2023-24, we see the throughput size to be at about 9.6 million cubic meters, and we expect it to grow to 10 million cubic meters in this current financial year, projected a 5% growth, and the subsequent years comes to about 4% growth, annual growth. Within the domestic market, we have seen a decline in terms of the demand because of the macroeconomic conditions that were prevailing in 2023-24, but we are still optimistic that there'll be a turnaround and that the economy will be able to grow and demand will also grow. Now for Kossuth and KPRL, we don't take the full amount. We do recognize that we have VTTI, and we have allowed VTTI 8% of the total imports. So now based on those inputs, this then is the tariff that we are requesting for. For 2024-25, the combined import handling and storage, we are requesting for $4.6 per cubic meters tariff. In Kenya shillings, that is 615.92. And then in 2025-26, we project that to grow to 668 Kenya shillings per cubic meters, or $5 per cubic meter. Then we are projecting further growth, but at a lower rate of 675 Kenya shillings per cubic meter, and in US dollars, 5 shillings per cubic meters. Currently, we know that the domestic products, they are charged in Kenya shillings, but the transit material is charged in US dollars. For truck loading, with the new investment now, the asset went up, so we are seeing we are requesting for an increase in that tariff, which was about 2.7 before, to 3.28 US dollars per cubic meters, growing to 3.46 US dollars per cubic meters in 25-26, and in the last year of the tariff control period, we are asking for 3.3 US dollars per cubic meters. So that is the tariff request that we have made to EPRA and that we are presenting to you for consideration. We know normally an increase is not something that we'd want to hear about, especially in these economic times. But as you notice from our inputs, it's important that we actually invest. It's important that we continue maintaining and rehabilitating our tanks. And ultimately, as much as this may go down, we could be able to see some savings in other aspects, especially on the demurrage that also impact the pump price. So finally, on the pump price, the import handling and primary storage tariff, normally, currently it's contributing about 4 shillings, 4 cents, but with the new tariff, it will go up to 6 cents per litre. So that is an adjustment of about 2 cents per litre on the pump price. As you can see, it is not a major component. It only accounts for about 0.003% of the total pump price if you consider Nairobi petrol products. We've also looked at our rates and compared with the rates in the region, and we still find ourselves quite competitive. When you compare with the VTTI, we are over 50% lower, and when you compare with what is picked at SOT, we are at about still at over 50% lower. For truck loading in Mombasa, I know there's been a lot of business that is shifting to that particular facility, mainly because of its competitiveness, and we are lower than what is offered at VTTI by over 30% and SOT by over 15%. So, ladies and gentlemen, those are the numbers. That is what we are requesting for as KPC for your kind consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I would like to acknowledge the presence of Director Mutua, and I will allow him to give a quick word, and then we can quickly go to tea break. Daktari, karibu.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, sorry, I know I've come late, but we had another engagement at the office. But I'm glad, like the person in charge of pricing, both at EPRA and also KPC, they are all here. And basically this is KPC's day, because it is them making a request that has to be heard from stakeholders. And from there, there's a regulator we listen and get the comments that are coming from the floor. And such information is very useful to us when we are making the final tariff determination. So on behalf of the DG who is away, and I know my colleague mentioned, he could be following even online. I need to check, because also we have a lot of Kenyans who are online. But we really appreciate that you have come, and the comments that you are going to be giving after this presentation are going to be very useful. The regulator has not determined the tariff yet, and it's because this is a second consultation. I think from here, oil will be moving to Mombasa, and then the western part of the country again, so that we finalize. And once we compile all the comments that will be coming in, we'll be able to make the final determination for approval to our board, and also the action gazettement of the same. So I'm so delighted that this room is like it has become our room. The last time we were doing something, we were also here. Yeah, so I think feel comfortable and don't, when it comes to the questions and the comment session, don't hold. Just let it come out what you think, because that is what is important for us to define what we want to do best in ensuring that there is sustainability of supply, security of supply in the country, also KPC as a company,
and as well as the OMCs, oil marketing companies, who are also very critical in this. You know, the way they are impacted on the tariff is also very important to us to understand all those areas, as well as consumers. So thank you very much. I'm getting back to you, Letitia. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. We are 30 minutes ahead of schedule, which is a good thing. So we will have our tea break a little early. The tea is served right outside to my left. So we will have a 30-minute tea break, 10:30 to 11. We come back, and as Dr. Mutua says, we can come and engage further around your thoughts around the new tariffs. Asanteni. I'll give you a minute to settle down. Thank you, sir. Welcome back to the second part of our program. And this is more or less the Q&A segment where you can seek clarifications from the Kenya Pipeline team as well as from ourselves as a regulator around the new tariffs that are recommended by KPC. So to lead this plenary discussion, I would like to welcome back to the podium Mr. Leonard Yegon. Karibu.
Thanks, Letitia. It appears guys have disappeared, yet we are... Please ask them to come in so that we get started. Because I think we are going into a very important session now. You've seen the numbers as presented by KPC, what it takes to have that liter of product at your nearest retail station in terms of infrastructure and in terms of the numbers that go into delivery or other provision of that service. So we are going to go into the Q&A session, and I would like to request us to try and stick or rather prosecute the matter at hand. I know we have a diverse audience here, and probably you have other burning issues probably directed at EPRA or KPC, but let us try and stick to the agenda of the day, which is the imports handling, primary storage and truck loading tariff as proposed by KPC. I think Dr. Mutua mentioned that a decision has not yet been made. We are in the final stages of reviewing this application. And that is why we are here to solicit feedback from you, the stakeholders. And by stakeholders, I mean those people who are going to be affected by whatever decision that the authority is going to make. I think that was an elaborate decision, the presentation by KPC. We've seen the numbers, what goes into the tariff in terms of investments they intend to make. What operations and maintenance cost they project to incur over the three-year period. I think our focus really was the investments being made at KPRL, the Portrees connectivity, as well as the rehabilitation of some of the tanks in Changamwe and Portrees. Went ahead to further present the proposed numbers. I think for the first year, $4.62 per cube, growing to around $5.07 per cube. And I think Elizabeth mentioned that currently we are paying for this tariff in KES. And I think this started last year when we transitioned into the G2G. You know, we asked ourselves, you are paying for the product in KES, then why pay for the service for your local company here in dollars? And that is when we shifted now to paying for this tariff in shillings as opposed to dollar. But of course, for transit product, they still pay for this service in dollars. So you've seen the impact. I think they're proposing around 0.6. The impact on the overall pump price is around 60 cents per liter. Growing from around 45 cents per liter that is there currently. I'm not saying that the increase is small, but that is what would take them to be able to provide that service to you. And as I mentioned earlier, we intend, or rather we strive to balance the interest of the different players within the segment, be they investors, consumers, and the public at large. So we want to start our Q&A session. I think I'll start from my left, in no particular order. Osia is in, has a mic. So we would take probably around 5 questions from this side. Then I will try and channel those questions either to KPC, or if it's touching on EPRA, then I will be asking EPRA team to respond to those issues. So we'll do 5 questions from my left. Then we shift to my right. We take another set of 5 questions. So I see a first hand on my front. So please introduce yourself. But I think I remember the gentleman, we were here together when doing the COSOP a few weeks ago. So introduce yourself for the audience and which company you're representing, and let us know your question.
Thank you very much. My name is Caleb Ngala once more. I'm representing Muungano na Vijiji, which is a community network across 47 counties. And basically I'm running another organization that is called Light of Hope. So our opinion as community members on this matter, we sat yesterday and we scrutinized it on Zoom meeting, and these are the issues that they raised about the proposed additional percentage that should be added in the coming years. So one, the Kenya Pipeline Company must understand that the world, not only Kenya, is changing from the issues to do with climate change, and people are now running away from using the old system or the oil to biogas or to electrical. Adding another even just 1% or 0 cent on top of what is existing, it will bring more burden to the consumers. That is our first request, that if we cannot increase it, then let it remain as it is, so that we can have a conducive environment, and also we can have affordable product for a common mwananchi. Two, we also discussed, we have shared, you will share with us the email so that we can share out our opinion that we discussed, as how we did it last time. Another thing is KPC, Kenya Pipeline Company. We are requesting, if you lack fund, can you work with the civil society so that we can lobby for more funds from the executive and the parliament? Because currently at the budgeting stage, we are at the formulation stage. Can you work closely with the civil society organizations? We as Muungano na Vijiji, we are ready to write more memorandums so that we can have a sector that is vibrant, sector that its products are available, are accessible, and are cheap, can be affordable for everyone. These are the issues that the issues of concern that we notice, and we have about 3 pages written and signed with across leaders from 47 counties. So we'll share that one through the email today so that we can have a joint overview of these proposals. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Caleb. Second question. I'm still on my left. So there's a hand.
Thank you very much, our moderator. My name is Joshua Adem from Public Health. And my concern is all the proposals we are seeing there, yes, they are implementable. But I think we are like starting on the wrong footing. As from the previous speaker, that is where my concern is. Because when you started, I just saw what all the discussions were between the EPC and the IPRA. Now, look at it. The other stakeholders, the consumers, were not part of this discussion. And I think that is where now, as we go ahead, we might hit the wall, because the questions will arise from the increment of the tariffs or the changes you want to make. Where other stakeholders' voices in this? Because the EPC and the IPRA are the only ones who have sat and discussed. So my concern, before we go far, where do you involve the stakeholders, the consumers, so that your proposals can be accepted nationwide, and also to be also balanced between the investors, the shareholders, and also the revenue collection that you need as a company should also benefit you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Joshua. Third question, before I invite the relevant teams to respond to the questions. I think we can switch to, there's a question on my right. Then after that, you'll come to the front. There's another hand here.
Thank you. I raised my hand because I didn't see other people raising from your left. So
It's
instead
okay.
of wasting time, I thought of raising my hand. My name's Catherine Aluda. I'm an investor in petroleum industries. Now, I just want to support what the other two members have also said. And my support is that you need to take care not to phase out yourself out of business of petroleum products. Already at the moment, you phased yourself out in the paraffin business. Nobody can buy paraffin for cooking. And you know, we who live in the suburbs of Nairobi, we have been using paraffin. But now we have moved out of paraffin to other things. So reduce the costs by maybe just staying to where you are without increasing. I know the other presenter had said that you are refurbishing the pipes and the storage. Storage refurbishing should be done from the reserves you had set aside from the business in the previous years. You don't refurbish and then you start calling your customers to pay for what you have spent. That's not economical. And then you widened the pipes for fueling or taking the oil from the ships. And that one reduced the cost of demurrage. Where is this increase coming from? Because piping is now faster and at a longer distance. And demurrage has gone down. Then why are you increasing? It's not commensurate to the increase and what you are spending. Lastly, look at the other prices of other companies, compare yourselves, then probably if you have incurred a high cost at the moment, it's because the dollar rate was high. So now that the dollar rate has gone down, consider not to punish the common man. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. There was another hand here.
My name is Samuel from Current Technologies. And my question was, concerning the market outside there. How certain are we with the market of Uganda, considering that at some point they want to be importing their own fuel? How are we sure that they still be bringing through Kenya and not TZ? Thank you.
I think we can take the fifth one right behind. Then there's a, okay. I'll come to you later.
Thank you. My name is Irene. Definitely we all know Kenyans right now don't want to hear anything that borders increasing of anything. But I would request that you again elaborate the benefit that we receive, considering the cost that you gave us on demurrage, which is pushed to the consumer, vis-a-vis the increase that you want to make. And also, if you could kindly elaborate how long it will take for the demurrage cost to be removed from the cost of the pump price, so that as stakeholders, we consider if it is fair to increase the tariff or to continue with the demurrage costs that we are paying. That's number one. Number two, though you've said we stick, let me just ask. KPC, we have the northern part of Kenya, and when you look for the common user facilities, the last place that we can pick our fuel is from Nairobi. Are you in any way planning any time in future to have a facility in places like Isiolo, Nanyuki, so that we can be able to open up the market that is in the northern Kenya and also take the advantage of the lapset? Finally, because I represent small dealers, and I am grateful that we have the oil marketing companies here. Most of the times, we get our fuel, which is not enough as we are loading. Is it KPC that gives them fuel that is enough, such that they have to compensate with the retailer? I would really want to know so that I communicate to our members. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can do that. We can try and respond to those questions, then we'll come back for another set of questions. So I think majorly revolving around issues of costing. I think Caleb asked a very pertinent question in terms of, in the wake of energy transition, what is KPC doing? You need to be alive to the fact that any increase in your tariffs, what will be the impact of that, or other impact of that increment. And I say that you need to work with civil society to lobby for more funds, either from Parliament or Exchequer, so that you don't burden Mwananchi to fund your projects. Immaculate, I believe you would be sharing an email. I don't know whether she's in the building, but I will get you that email. We'll share the email at the tail end of this presentation. You should be able to share your feedback. So KPC, those are your questions. Joshua, say that we are starting on a wrong footing. We've not, where are the consumers in this whole review? But I think we mentioned earlier on that it's still a review. It's still a proposal that is under consideration. We are here now to solicit feedback. We are here to bring on board that consumer, so that when the eventual decision is being made, then we have incorporated feedback from the consumers. Catherine, I think that answers Joshua's question. On the issue of, I think KPC are saying you need to be aware, so, or rather, you need to, in your decision, so that you don't phase out yourself out of business. So the proposed increment is, what impact will it have in terms of business continuity? And of course, whether you've done any analysis, comparative analysis with other pipeline companies, and compare the rates that they are charging. I think Simon from Current, probably I'll give this to Dr. Mutua. How certain are we with the Uganda market? Says that he's aware that Uganda wants to start importing cargoes. Are we certain they are going to use the northern corridor, or they are going to shift to the central corridor? And lastly, I think Irene, this will go again to KPC. You need to elaborate the benefits that we are going to receive out of this. Are we going to cut on demurrage? And of course, whether you have plans to serve the northern, what plans are there to serve the northern part of Kenya? And I think our last question was on shortage of product. Is it that KPC limits the product they give to the OMCs, which in turn affects the dealers? So I think I can ask Dr. Mutua to come in first, then probably Elizabeth or Zilpa, whoever. Then you tackle the KPC questions. So karibu John.
Okay, thank you very much, Leonard. I was hoping that KPC can come first and we come last, but it's okay. I think with regard to the question by Samuel, how sure we are with the with the market shifting to Tanzania, what we call the central, it's called the central corridor. I think for us as a regulator, because as we actually review this application, we'll be looking at the implications of both internal and also external competitiveness, because we know Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, they have another route which they can also import their products from. And the idea for us as Kenya, as a country, as a regulator, is to ensure that we enhance competitiveness within our corridor. So, of course, this is not something, Samuel, we should worry us at this stage, because we'll be able to undertake also cost-benefit analysis, and also looking at competition, looking at what is likely to happen, because I do understand Uganda, like for example, Uganda, they have a government-to-government importation agreement for fuel, and they are also using our corridor. That sort of locks their market to us in terms of usage of the pipeline. But of course, there are other implications to the industry as well. But we should not worry about this. Maybe, Leo, I can also comment on the issue of budgeting. That is by Caleb, just to help KPC on this. And I do appreciate, of course, the budget process by the National Treasury has started. And it is usually a process before we get to January, February, and the approvals, the various approvals are given. And these are good sentiments. And I think as a stakeholder, you can always go to KICC or where the meetings are happening by the National Treasury, and also provide your views, so that also we try to protect our sector. But from a regulator, because I do understand the government policy, especially the fiscal policy on budgets, the government view is that we want our institutions to be stronger, self-reliant, and depend less from the National Treasury, especially commercial parastatals that who are doing commercial services, either you are selling a service or a good. The idea is to strengthen them, to generate their own revenues, and even give a dividend to the National Treasury, but not for the National Treasury to finance them. And that's why, for us, we are very much focused in ensuring that, first of all, KPC, for example, in the petroleum side, and also KPLC in the electricity side, they are viable, they are able to generate their own revenues, pay their costs, and even make a return, and give the government a check. There are two ways of doing it. Because sometimes when you look at something like energy sector, if you look at the government financing for the same, it will be very difficult. And our budget deficit is always higher than what we can be able to raise as a country. So the more companies like KPC are able to generate their funding through tariffs, the better for the sector. And I think that is what happens worldwide. In fact, if you go to other countries, developed market, the sector should be able to pay for itself and pay taxes to government and create employment. The government just creates an enabling environment for doing, for enabling the private sector to thrive, and also the public sector. So Ngala, I think we should not worry much, and even insist on the KPC going to lobby government for budget. The best thing is for KPC to create its own revenue, be sustainable, and actually provide the service of transportation and storage at the lowest cost, and still maintain profitability at the end of the day. I think that's what I would say, Leonard. KPC. Is it Zilpa? Is it okay?
Good morning. My name is Zilpa Michelle Labongo. I'm the General Manager, Strategy and Compliance, of course accompanied by our General Manager, Finance, for any input relating to costs versus funding. So you've asked a host of questions, and I will try and cover them in a most comprehensive way. And picking up from where Dr. Mutua has indicated, that the tariff is a function of our regulated asset base, as well as our cost efficiencies or inefficiencies, as well as the return that we would like to have on these assets. That is also a regulated quantum. So when we talk about efficiencies, we will have to turn around our capacity, whether tankage or the pipeline, etc., a sufficient number of times for us to what we call sweat the asset. And that means that we have to seek volume, high level of volume, so that the input cost is reduced. So ultimately, when you asked about Uganda, that was a very potent question, because we cover not just the Kenyan economy, but the regional economy as well. Uganda being our foremost export, or rather transit market. So in our analysis, Uganda is going to be moving product from the Kenyan side for the foreseeable future, because as you're aware, their movement into Tanzania was only a stopgap. And therefore, them contemplating any bulk movement of product was not long-term. It was until the issues at a geopolitical level were resolved, and those were resolved. Concerning then whether or not they remain in the corridor, there's actually work that's going on behind the scenes to ensure that we extend our capability to the borders in Busia County of Malaba and Busia to enable them pick product directly from our border posts. So we are working very hard to ring fence the regional market, because we are clear that that volume is necessary to ensure efficiencies of our infrastructure, which, by the way, is the only infrastructure in East and Central Africa for white oil's petroleum product movement. Now, going into the question of decarbonization and move towards greening of our infrastructure, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes at Kenya Pipeline Company, and I'm sure very many energy utilities, to ensure that not just at an operational level, but at a strategic level, we're working towards that just and fair energy transition. We have done a lot of work significant in terms of our tankage to ensure that there's less emissions coming from them, as well as less particulate matter into the environment. From a standards perspective, I'm sure you know Kenya is always at the forefront of ensuring that the fossil fuels that are imported here are at European specs. Now, in terms of what we do, we have solarized some of our capability. We're working to solarize our pumping capability to move away from the national grid, which, as you know, is already heavily decarbonized, but there's still a thermal element to it, and we're working to ensure that we can put up mini solar grids or a large-scale solar grid that then offers backup to the national one. We have done so for our headquarters. We have ensured that our tankage is fitted with dome roof tanks that really capture the vapor within our system. We have really worked hard to ensure that our power intensity is reduced, and we're working even harder with Kenya Power to make that reality more forthcoming and more sustainable. And we are in the process of R&D in some segments, but commercialization of some aspects to ensure that the sources of fuel that we are putting out into the market are not just fossil fuel related. There's some work going on for large-scale auto gas conversion, but there's also some work that we're doing with local communities to try and build up the capacity of the engineering capacity that is, for instance, in South Sudan and in the Congo, that will be more technologically advanced and hence less energy intensive. That said, we are at a new phase of tariff building. And the projects that my colleague Elizabeth mentioned are projects that we're actually completing. So once that is done, she's indicated in the third year of the tariff control period, you will see the increment only be 1%. Beyond that, we do not expect to be doing large-scale work in the downstream petroleum investments. We expect to be doing more large-scale work in terms of energy efficiencies. And there we will partner heavily with the private sector to ensure that some of these ideas are actually brought to market and brought to realization, but that will be 3 years out. The energy transition does not happen overnight, and it is something that KPC is acutely aware of, working very hard in our next generation of strategic thinking that will be unveiled next year, July. In terms of funding mechanisms, I think Professor Mutua has really heavily spoken to that. KPC does not, has not, will never depend on the exchequer for funding. We do not take money from the consolidated fund, and we will never request to take money from the consolidated fund. We are a commercial entity, even though 100% owned by government, existing to ensure positive return on any money input into our into our operations that then eventually generate efficiency for you, lower cost to the sector, and more than anything, no burden to the treasury. And so we also offer a dividend that perhaps my colleague Pius could speak to after this, to the national treasury. So what then happens is we actually finance a lot of the recurrent expenditure for the national government. So more than anything, we're actually one of the people that provide cash flow into this economy. Aside from that, we hire people from across end to end of this country, and it's something we will continue to do as part of development of the communities around our pipeline infrastructure. We talked about the Northern Kenya frontier, who are actually in Garissa on Monday, and yes, KPC is part of the LAPSET project, but from the pipeline perspective, we have seen that LAPSET has taken off in a lot of regards, but on the oil and gas side, it hasn't taken off as fast as it needed to, and that's because naturally oil and gas infrastructure is it's highly cost intensive, it's extremely expensive to put in capital into it. So the refinery and the pipeline remain outstanding, largely because when Uganda went to Tanzania, I'm sure you're aware, we were only left to the prospect of dealing with the North Horn of Africa, and that includes Sudan and possibly Ethiopia. That said, I'm sure EPRA could speak to this in the future. There is some work continuously going on in terms of exploration that then could decide whether we fund activities in pipelines. However, you asked about specifically Isiolo and Nanyuki. I know Vivo has a terminal in Nanyuki that we heavily facilitated as Kenya Pipeline Company. And we have a plan that was drawn up in 2017, and this was indeed asked in Garissa, for devolution of our pipeline network. I've talked about going into Busia. There was a plan to go into Isiolo. There was a plan to go into Voi and Taveta. There was a plan to also go into the North Rift. So we do have a plan that saw a depot put up in Isiolo, and then eventually, of course, facilitated by a pipeline network that would then see us connect into the LAPSET corridor with the pipeline that was to be built there to go into Ethiopia, But as you're aware, Ethiopia opted to continue taking products from Djibouti, so that project was no longer viable, and it also needs funding, which for KPC we have determined will be through a PPP model, but that will come in the next generation of our strategy, because it was felt that KPC needed to first dominate the Kenyan market, ensure that we at least serve 100% of the needs here, as we then look to extend our border positioning towards getting product into the Horn of Africa, as well as further inland into Central Africa. So that is work in progress. It has even a feasibility assessment that was done. The topography was mapped, and it just requires a green light eventually for us to go and put that up. Going back into being costed out of business, paraffin, I wouldn't want to get into too much detail here, but that was a deliberate policy move by the national government to phase that out. It is not a question of us being caught off guard as the downstream sector. It was deemed to be not just poor form of fuel for households, but also in preference for liquefied petroleum gas, which I'm sure you've heard the president pronounce himself on severally. It was deemed to be less effective or viable as a household fuel. So paraffin was a deliberate effort. It was not about the industry being caught off guard. And part of the returns from that tax increment on paraffin goes towards funding the LPG project that I'm sure will be unveiled in large scale within the next 2 years. I've talked about operational efficiency. KPC works very hard on a day-to-day to ensure, and Pius could speak to some of the cost optimizations we do, that our costs are minimized relative to the output that we have out there. So in terms of the way we run our pumps using VFD drives as opposed to the old school pumps, the way that we run our pumping philosophy, moving product from Mombasa to Western Kenya, the way that we have our power on for a certain duration of time in the course of the week, and then put it and then stock up at the end of the weekend. There's a whole model to which we run our facilities that ensures that our power intake is limited compared to how it could be, and also very well benchmarked against other pipeline companies, wherein KPC is a multi-product pipeline facility, and therefore there's a batching mechanism that we use to ensure that that efficiency is attained. On the marriage versus consumer interests, the marriage is a function that is, of course, also regulated, and not so much has much to do with what we do, but how it is that imports are planned. And what my colleague Elizabeth spoke to is that we are working to ensure that you have the facilities, you have the infrastructure. Therefore, anybody can plan to bring their vessels and not blame the capacity in the economy for why it is that they're not discharging. So you cannot look at the marriage as a function of comparison or as a comparator with the pipeline tariff, because the pipeline tariff is facilitating you before you get to the marriage. The marriage is a consequence of inefficiencies that arise not just from the infrastructure, but also potentially from planning or from other macroeconomic issues. So in terms of the consumer pricing, you would have heard that the regulator has indicated this is only the beginning of the process. We have adduced our request, and then we'll be looking at whether or not, in terms of the infrastructure we need to put up or the operations we need to run, is the consumer protected in terms of the final eventual tariff that you're offered in the price build-up, which, as we indicated, is 0.003% of your final price. Product outages, I think this was more of a concern to the oil marketing companies, but KPC is a common use system. Everyone and anyone can pick and distribute products through our infrastructure. All companies then sell to you at a wholesale level and eventually at a retail level. KPC does not pick and choose how it avails that product, but how the product is availed is by function of market share. So of course the companies that have the biggest market share have higher access to a larger quantum of product, but nonetheless they're also still then serving many wholesalers. So ultimately, product outages are not a consequence of infrastructure. They're essentially a consequence of how many customers then are to be served by the eventual oil marketing company. I would maybe just ask Pius to make a comment on cost efficiency, if he may, and funding from the exchequer, if there's anything to add.
Thank you, Zilpa. I think the issue of cost and funding from the Exchequer has been very well articulated by Daktari and Zilpa. Probably what I would add is, yes, you are giving us, or we are discussing about a tariff, which is a driver of our revenues. But you do realize that revenues is a function of the volumes and the tariff. For us to be able to generate good revenue, it requires us to go an extra mile. We don't just rely on the tariff to realize, you know, the kind of targets that we envisage as a company. So one of the things that happens, and that is why as a company we work towards ensuring that at the end of the year we give back to the shareholder, who is the government. And when we give back to the government, then what that means is the money goes back to improving the public goods, which benefit all of us. Is we try as much as possible to work on efficiency, and I think that is what I mentioned at the beginning. One of our key focus is on the regional market, because when you are working on this tariff, we want to ensure that we make the cost of living for the local citizen as less burden as possible. But at the same time, it's our responsibility to ensure that we mop up the regional market. Now, as we speak, about 52% of our volumes comes from the regional market. 48% comes from Kenya. And that is where we are working hard to ensure that this tariff we get, then how do we improve and how do we generate more revenue so that at the end of the year, we are able to give back to the government. The other thing we do is on the cost efficiencies. If you look at our numbers, and they are open in the public domain, you can go to our website, look at our financials for the last several years. Our compounded growth rate for our costs has not been more than 6% in an economy where the inflation rate ranges between 6 to 8%. So even as we get tariff, we have a responsibility to ensure that we work hard in terms of ensuring that we optimize on our facilities, and we are very cautious about costs. So at the end of the day, we are able to deliver a profit. We pay corporate tax, which goes back to the government, and at the same time, we pay dividend. If you look at our numbers for the last about 4 to 5 years, we've paid about 30 billion. And this goes back to the government, which gives back to the citizen in terms of building the roads, the hospitals. So just to let my friend know that we don't envisage, and it's not our intention to go to the Exchequer. Because if you look at the parastatals that are going back to the Exchequer, they are the ones who are putting even more strain to the national budget instead of contributing to it. So I think that has been very well covered, and I hope it's clear to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pius, Dr. Mutua and Zilpa. I hope you've been well answered for that first set of questions that we had. And maybe building on that efficiency narrative that Pius has talked about. KPC is asking for revenues to be able to undertake certain projects to meet the operational cost. And that is what they had done as well in 2020, 2021. And we gave them certain revenues, but of course with certain parameters. So as we are reviewing the tariff now, we also put them to task to explain to us these revenues that we gave you. Yeah, how did you utilize it? You told us you're going to build, do this infrastructure. Were they done? If they were not done, then there is a mechanism for ensuring that that is recouped back to the mwananchi. So we can do another set. I think there is a gentleman I had cut. He can come in first. So we'll do another, then we'll come back to you. We do 5 questions, then we respond to them as well.
Thank you, moderator. My name once again is Samuel Obiero. So I've got only two concerns, and the die has been cast. I think our experience with the tariff is, once it is set, ours is to validate here. So my concern is on efficiency, and I want to speak from an importer's perspective. KPC says they've got the resources and they don't need any additional resources. If at all they could work with KPA to expand maybe the pumping and jettisoning mechanism at the port, we could really absorb these tariffs that have been set by KPC. So the next thing is on adjustment due to fluctuation in the dollar. Initially, we used to have these tariffs maybe based on the dollar. Right now, it's in Kenya shilling. We want to see maybe an indication that there's a factor to adjust for the fluctuation in the dollar. And finally, KPC again says they've got the resources maybe to conduct their operations locally. How about expansion of the pipeline to Uganda and possibly to DRC? Do they have the funds? Why the triple P in this case? Thank you.
Thank you, my friend moderator. My name is Archami. Let me first of all appreciate for you inviting us here. I also want to appreciate for the work management and board and staff of KPC are doing, and also appreciate the management of this hotel. You have been here for long and they are doing us very, very good service. And also I want to appreciate those who have attended today, that they have left their jobs and they are here. First of all, let me support for the tariff increase, as you have put it there, up to 2027. I think I had up to 2027. Because without money, without capital, you cannot be doing developments which you are citing up here. So I support that one first, before I start asking any question. My first question is, how are you analyzing sustainability of finances? Sustainability of finances in KPC. The other one is, we are missing a lot of paraffin in most petrol stations. Is there any problem? Paraffin is not in most of the petrol stations. Third, I would like you to go to DRC Congo, because it is coming up. They don't have most of the petrol and whatever. And also where you have said Southern Sudan. But vita yao mwambie waache kwanza. Waanze kupigana, wafanye maendeleo. So that you take their oil and then watumie mafuta. Kuna Waafrika ni watu wa kupigana na watu wa kuharibu vitu. This is the way I see. Kama Waafrika wangelikuwa watu wazuri, transparency na democracy, ile democracy ya maana, tungelikuwa tumeenda very far. Hata KPC mngelikuwa mko free kuuza oil yenu na kuleta in good time, in good place, katika mazingira mzuri. So management ya KPC mpate hiyo pesa up to 2027, lakini muitumie vizuri ili mpanue, muwe na a lot of development. When you come here, when you call us again here, mtatuambia tumefanya hii, mtatuambia to increase pesa, tumefanya hii, tutakuwa very happy. Na sasa hata tutakuwa na cocktail party jioni. So hiyo ndio maoni yangu, lakini naweka tu kwamba wale ambao wanafanya kazi, unajua mwenye kufaa kiato ndiye anajua pale gani na muuma. Kwa vile mmeleta hiyo taarifa, mnajua kwamba mnateta kwa sababu tena mmeongea na EPRA wamekubali. Sisi ni nani kukataa? Kwa sababu sisi tumekuja kuunga nyinyi mkono na tutamuunga mkono, na baada ya kumuunga mkono tukitoka hapa Muende, msikae kwa ofisi, muende mfanye kazi mpaka Ethiopia, mpaka huko. Mweke overalls, kwa sababu mafuta ni overall. Asante sana. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shalom. There are two hands at the back, Osia. Then we'll come to the front.
My name is Stephen Musharo. So I'll be a bit specific. And first, I would want to really commend KPC for a job well done. And specifically, I'm talking about the development of the new jetty. Maybe KPC, it would have been good for you if you would have shown these members a pictorial of the new jetty, because it's a game changer. We are straight beneficiaries of that facility, and today we are able to handle 3 cargoes at a go, compared to 1 cargo, initially. So this has significantly, reduced demurrage for the country and the ultimate cost of the petroleum products. Having said that, my proposal would be a bit specific. I know KPC has proposed an increment of 0.88 cents per dollar for the storage tariff in Mombasa. And in consultations and discussions is around meeting somewhere in between. So maybe my request to KPC, at a worst case scenario, maybe you can look at maybe an increment at worst of maybe 15%. Because having looked at the increment, is around 23.5%. So in view of the issues being mentioned here, my proposal or request to you is that, can you consider maybe at worst an increase of 15%? Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
My name is Issa. We do engage with KPC on a daily basis. I represent Quality Petroleum, and I want to appreciate that what KPC has done in terms of the investment. So it's huge, and we do appreciate that. That improves the inefficiency, efficiency. My question is on promotional tariffs. I know it goes opposite to what KPC is trying to do in terms of raising the tariffs. But as I've heard even from Dr. Mutua, if we remain positive on our regional market, because the revenue that KPC is trying to generate is based on volumes, that then means we need to throughput more volumes to even our regional market. Then if we remain positive, the growth of regional market, particularly in DRC Congo and South Sudan, if I may propose, from the presentation that I have heard, is that we expect a 25% increment on truck loading tariffs. If we have a positive view of a demand growth in regional market, then we expect to throughput more through maybe giving up promotional tariffs. That's will probably, as we know, that these tariffs goes to the cost of transportations, even to us OMCs. Then if we can able to have promotional tariffs, particularly for the transit or export market, then we will be able to improve efficiency through loading more or throughput. Then it's a win-win for both the OMCs and also for the KPC, because they can throughput more and generate more revenue to improve on the efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you, Isa. There are two hands.
Thank you. My names are Isa Mohammed from the civil society. I want to be very clear that the majority of us who are here, we are just stakeholders. But the person who is affected directly, it is the common mwananchi, who is the direct consumer. And this implementation of multi-year tariffs was started in October 2022, and it was championed by IPRA. And the same IPRA is the one who have invited us here. To me, I understand that Kenya Pipeline is most of the shares is owned by National Treasury, almost 99% plus. Only a few of the share it is owned by the Ministry of Energy. Therefore, meaning that the dividends, the annual dividends, majority goes to the National Treasury. And the National Treasury, they have mandate of collecting all the source in terms of revenue so that they can dispatch them into development. I think the issue of improving pipeline, it is an issue of the National Treasury and planning, being that after every year, through those dividends which you give them, they have the responsibility of transforming that profit into development, of which you are issuing here. Therefore, I don't think that is a responsibility of IPRA or rather a Kenya Pipeline Company. And there is other levies like road maintenance levy, which also falls to the National Treasury. So if the National Treasury is getting enough resource, why don't you just implement with us the minimum resource they have, of which you are trying at all your best to give them every year? Why again implementing another tariff that will affect the common mwananchi there on the ground? Hii watu yote ambao tumekaa hapa, sisi ni stakeholder, hatutakuwa affected. Labda kuna mtu akona matatu yake, kuna mtu akona kampuni, kuna mtu ataenda achukue mafuta. Then from there, hiyo mafuta ni matatu itachukua. Matatu kazi yake itanunua kwa bei yenye iko. Sasa ule mwananchi ambao anaagiza hiyo gari, the common mwananchi boarding that matatu, ndio sasa atawachiliwa hiyo mzigo. Sasa hiyo kitu we should consider about it. Let us not just waking up and just increasing those tariffs without putting into consideration how the situation is there on the ground. Mwananchi is crying a lot. We are the civil society. We are on the ground. You are on the boardroom. You are not understanding what is going there on the ground. We consider about increasing that tariffs.
Thank you, sir. You can pass the mic to your right.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Alex Ocheng. First, I'd like to thank the KPC for what they have done actually to increase our storage facility, and that is a good idea, and even the line 5. And my question is on the increments of tariff. I know it's a good idea. We are going to be able to collect more revenue. And my question is, what is your plan actually on the upstream future of this country? And again, what is your plan with the KPRL? Actually, when I talk about the refinery, are we going to get our glory back? What is the plan actually? Because if we look at our neighboring country, that is Uganda actually.
From Samuel Obiero, asking whether the tariff is set already. KPC needs to work with KPA so that we avoid this increment. And there was another question on tariff being based in KES, and if there is a factor to cater for forex adjustment. But I think you've seen the KPC cost. They are all in KES. Yeah, the tariff will be in KES, and there is no adjustment for any forex. Transit products will be paid for in USD. And of course, he's asked about the plans, whether there are any plans to extend to Uganda. I think Chalo asked about, I'll be asking Stella to respond to this, whether there is any stock out of kerosene in the country. He's saying there is no paraffin in the retail stations. But I, oh, sorry. Chami. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I'll tie it, Chami, yes, sorry about that. I'll tie it to the last question we had on the plans we have for the refinery and the plans we have for the upstream industry. I think there's a question which had been asked. So I think Stella will give us about how much are we covered in terms of stock for kerosene. Musheru, please that we at least see an increment of 15%. And not the 23%. So I think APC will respond to that. And of course, there was a question on promotional tariff. This is from Quality Petroleum, that is ISA. With the projected growth in throughput, are we able to see promotional tariffs, especially for the export market? Isa Mohammed from Civil Society. I think I'll be asking KPC to respond to that on issue of promotional tariff. Isa Mohammed says that we need to be alive to what is happening on the ground. We need to listen to that person who will be affected by these prices. And of course, the last question was on, I think, plans on the future of upstream. Plans on the future of refinery, and what plans do we have as a government, what plans do we have as EPRA on those two areas. So I think I'll ask
I will just answer as I've been advised on whether there is stock out for kerosene. As per the stock reports we have received, we have kerosene stocks. Hatuna shida ya stocks ya kerosene. So, pengine, I think now it is some of the marketers some are putting it in their filling stations, others are not. So maybe ni kutafuta ule mwenye ako nayo kwa station yake ili upate hiyo ni, lakini hakuna shida ya mafuta taa kwa stocks.
When someone buys, well, I have enough voice to talk. When someone buys 20 liter of paraffin to sell and it stays in the kiosk for almost a year, he will not come and buy again because people are not using. You have phased out yourself from business. This is, Kenya is a planned economy. And in this planned economy, Kenya is operating business with its own citizen under monopoly. So if it's under monopoly, it's high time government gave these services like almost any free service, but because of sustaining the staff and people who are doing the business, you should make money to maintain the business going on, but not making a profit. This extra dividends you are giving to government, if you reduce the price of paraffin, people would buy. I would buy and use it. But if you go to my house, I've stocked my stove somewhere and it has already gone rusting because of the pricing. If you go with 100 shillings, you can't even make tea in the morning. Thank you.
Okay, that is noted. However, it's important to note that at least we have also seen an uptake of LPG. So one is going down while another one is going up, meaning the economy is diversifying. And I think that's the beauty of freedom, in that we have options. So in as much as we are seeing Kero stagnate, we have also seen the uptake of LPG is going up. So the market diversification, we really cannot force people to use one product, because it is at the freedom and at the wills of the people. So, and that is why we are seeing that the stocks are there, but maybe uptake is what is more of a concern.
Thank you, thank you. I think we are all in a dispensation where we have energy transition. People are shifting from dirty fuels to clean energy. And that is where the world is moving to. So as you are seeing consumption of kerosene going down, LPG is picking up. And that is where the world is heading.
Thank you, Leo. You have said what I wanted to say. Yeah, actually, Catherine, because I think what you are saying, the issue you are raising is important. But in addition to, because of course, kerosene, we have tried to, even, kerosene, we have an unadulteration levy that is imposed on kerosene because of adulterating fuel. There are those players also who are not very honest, so they try to mix it with diesel and super, and that's why we try to manage. Because if there is a tax differential, there is also be a problem. If the cost of kerosene is also so low, there will also be another problem. But I think in addition to what Leonard has said, and my sister Stella, is that when you look at energy transition, and we are talking about decarbonization, we want to improve the experience of cooking at the household. And that's why the government has a very clear policy of increasing penetration, kuongeza utumiaji wa gas. Hiyo ndio ya muhimu sana, because kerosene, because of indoor air pollution, research that has been done, and we are aware of that as a regulator, especially in the rural areas where the doors of the windows of the homes are not very well ventilated, it affects the people who cook most, and it is our ladies. So the ladies who cook, I'm not saying ladies cook more than men, but because ladies spend a lot of time in the kitchen, they are likely to be affected by excessive use of kerosene. So whereas when we see something is coming down, actually, and I think for us who have been here in 2018, we were consuming almost 40 million liters of kerosene. And when the adulteration levy was introduced, that consumption went down, meaning that kerosene was being used elsewhere. It was not being used in homes, I can tell you that. Today we are consuming 5 million liters in a month. I think when I look at the consumption, it's about 5 million liters at the moment. And it's because, on the other hand, LPG usage is increasing. As LPG is becoming, the government has removed LPG taxes. It has even given tax incentives for manufacturers of gas cylinders. And I think the new strategy that was launched, I think, was it this year or last year? Last year. It will enable actually for us to increase the per capita usage of LPGs from 7 kilos. We are looking at even going to 13, 15 kilos, which will be good for every Kenyan. For us, let's look at the brighter side of it. Low usage of kerosene doesn't mean the oil industry is going to be affected, or the low-income household are going to be affected negatively, but it's also another way of protecting their health. So the other issue maybe I want to add, the upstream, the issue of upstream. The government is committed to promote, of course, investment in the upstream side of it. We do have oil in Turkana and of course prospect in other blocks that are positive in terms of oil and gas. So the government priority still remains that we need to develop these fields so that it can also benefit us as a country. Of course, we have to look at the economics on whether we do pipelines. I mean, that is where the government is looking at, and a lot of effort, a lot of discussions are going on with the Minister of Petroleum, Minister of Energy and Petroleum, the National Treasury, EPRA, and other stakeholders to ensure that we benefit from what is also within our borders is important. Maybe the last one I want to maybe tackle is on the, I think that Isa Mohammed on the road maintenance levy. I think the issue of taxes, if I can take it, taxes and tariffs. It is important to know that government finances its operation from taxes or they borrow. You know, those are the only options the government has. And when you look at the expanded government that we have one national government, the Republic of Kenya, then we have 47 county governments. All these governments, whether it is county government or national government, they require money to run. We have other basic sectors like education, like health, housing, transportation, which require again a lot of resources, and that's why the government has to have all this combination of ways of raising funds. Of course, the road maintenance levy, we have VAT, we have excise duty, we have so many taxes. Of course, even within East Africa, it's not us only who are taxed. I think we need also to appreciate that. Even other countries are taxed, but the issue is, how do we ensure we use the taxes that we do collect better, and also like looking at the impact of the same, so that we all agree as Kenyans, because we do understand, and that's why even the government is very accommodative. The Finance Act is suspended for 2024. All these things are happening because from the side of citizens, they have issues. The government is also trying to ensure that you meet your budget. And even when you look at the consequences of suspending the Finance Act, for example, the government has had to cut funding for almost all organizations. And what that means is that even services have been compromised, because now you cannot be able to provide the services the way you would want it, because you cannot raise more revenues. So I think that is where now, like, and for me, I'm an advocate of looking at the revenues from the tariffs, because it may be a small cost, but eventually, if you see, like, if you are in a, I don't know if you have been in our countries, I think some of us mentioned maybe DRC, we have talked about Burundi, we have talked about, I think somebody talked about the security situation in those countries. You may find security of course it has to do with the money. Well, of course for us as Kenya, I would say we are a peaceful country. And I think the most important thing is to ensure that we are able to provide the service and ensure we have security of supply. Not even about the security of protecting the nation, but security that KPC is able to ensure that the pipeline is working 100%, and the transportation of products from entry point to all the corners in the country are available, such that we don't have stockouts. At least we don't have stockouts for kerosene. I want to confirm that. The other day we were looking at the days. We are holding kerosene. The days are almost 58 days. 44 now, 44 days. So meaning we have a lot of kerosene within the country really. Was there another? So thank you very much. Sipa?
Okay, collaboration with KPA. If you were paying attention to my colleague Elizabeth's presentation, You would note that KPA is the one that built the new Kipevu Oil Terminal 2, the one we're calling KOT2. I don't know if you captured the image, but it's an exceptionally well-built terminal, the first of its kind in the region, and it was done to a capacity that could take this country through to 2045. So we have no problem with expanded infrastructure. And now KPC collaborates with KPA by doing the pipe work, and we are the ones who operate KOT2. So collaboration occurs all the time, and it is even mandatory because we do not run port facilities. In terms of dollar fluctuation, I think EPRA has already talked about it, and the Forex adjustment. For COSIF tariff, effective last year, we bill the local market in shillings, and any loss or variation in Forex in the event that, for instance, the dollar continues to depreciate against the Kenya shilling, we will take that hit. So any infrastructure done in dollar-denominated currency over a period of 3 years, we take that loss. And usually, if the market is steady, we don't have to worry about it. We only worried about it before the interventions from the National Treasury on fiscal policy. I would like to re-emphasize that tariff building is a 3-year process, and it is subject to inputs as indicated, the revenue requirement as well as the costs, and the eventual return that's allowed of 10.5%, and of course the corporate tax. So at no one point will a tariff be the same or be stable. In the last adjustment, it hardly came up, but where it did, it was for expansion of critical infrastructure like we've talked about, and here we are in the final phase of that. What we're then saying is in the next tariff review, you will likely see a decrease, and you will see that even the increments are not even. They are different for each fiscal year or each financial year. So it is not that we come here to adduce to you constant increments, and this is something that will happen for the length or the lifetime of this economy. You will sometimes see increases, sometimes you will see decreases, because this is a built-up model. It is an econometric model. So it is not something that we come up with from nowhere, and we also do not come up with it to burden Mwananchi. We literally just return the costs that we have incurred, and then give back a dividend to the Treasury and sweat the assets that we have been allowed to build. So I think that that's something you need to put at the back of your minds, because with each tariff review, whether for us or KPLC or any other utility, it is something that will always fluctuate. Now, the question of whether we can have a flat line adjustment of 15%, unfortunately, the principles of tariff regulation do not work that way, because it is subject to what capital projects or enhancements you have for each financial year that are spread out over a period of 3 years, of which some come into play the first year, others the second year, others the third year. It's also subject to depreciation, as Elizabeth mentioned. It is a function of the net book value. Not all assets in the register then are also valued or admissible, and it is subject to your operational costs. So you cannot then say you'll put in a 15% adjustment, because then you'll be asking the regulator to change the method by which they review or adjust tariffs. And if that be the case, then that's a conversation that has to be had at a policy level, because we use the principles that were given to us for regulation of our tariff. In terms of financial sustainability, essentially what we do, and that's why we come to you every 3 years, we never want to run at a loss, but we also do not want to have idle capital. So someone then mentioned that, do we engage in PPPs, or is there plans? I think I mentioned this when I spoke about the extension into the northern Kenya and other parts of the country that would eventually see us spread in different corners of the economy, into the south through Tanzania, into the north through Ethiopia, into the east through Uganda. And what we said is that we will work with partners. There's a lot of private capital that is ready and willing to invest in the energy sector. the government of its own cannot fund such projects. They cost billions of shillings, sometimes even billions of dollars, and therefore we must engage in public-private partnerships, as is the case with the LPG project in Mombasa. So therefore, into expansion of the Eldoret-Kampala-Kigali pipeline, as you may have heard, we are engaging private capital for development of this pipeline because it is quite a long stretch, and Kenya will be tasked with extending it to the border. Kampala will take over with the funder Uganda will take over into Kampala, and the same will happen to Kigali. From there, we anticipate that once DRC is stable, they'll either pick product that comes from the Northern Corridor through the Port of Mombasa, from Kigali, or they can take it directly from Western Kenya or from what we call the complementary facility of the Kisumu oil jetty that is based in Entebbe, Uganda. So we are creating both waterway, road, and pipeline transportation networks into the regional economy. And this is a broader strategy that we have employed over a period of the past 3 years. And when we come to talk to you about our transport tariff, you will see what some of that money that you allowed us has done. I would also like to advise that promotional tariffs are not part of the regulated environment because they're hard to assess. So we had a promotional tariff in 2018 when we were before we were regulated, when we were trying to increase the volume coming from the regional market. It worked very well. And then eventually the tariff was slashed to the current about $37 a cube that you load from Western Kenya. And what we would say is for Kisumu Oil Jetty, for the period of the past 1.5 years, we have collaborated with a private entity there that has gotten the blessings from its government to offer them a promotional tariff of about $1 that they then passed on to the market. Once their facility stabilized, the promotion was removed. So every now and again, depending on the market need, and this need would largely always be around the regional market because, as we said, we're really heavily targeting DRC. We're targeting South Sudan to increase our revenue and our volume. We will consider promotions, but they are not part of what is regulated because they are on need basis and not on a standard basis. We talked about the loading tariff being increased and whether or not we have assessed that that is fair. When we look at not just the storage terminals in Western Kenya, but even in Tanzania, you will store product for $6 to $7, and then an additional loading charge will be added on. We're asking you for a maximum of 5, a minimum of 3.6. So essentially what we're saying is we still are the most efficient, cost-efficient and efficient loading and storage facility in the region. We do not charge anything more than what is already what the market charges, and we are by far the cheapest of all the modes of storage and loading. The previous loading tariff was $1. We're asking you for about $3 and something cents. When we do the benchmarking of cost buildups between ourselves and Tanzania, with the same price benchmark, we actually are cheaper into the regional economy for Rwanda and for DRC. We only have issues in one product line, which the regulator is reviewing, but by far, Kenya remains the cheapest corridor to use because you have a pipeline system. So you must remember that you must continue to support it, failure to which you will have an economic condition that makes you pay more for the cost of products. That's something I want you to put in the back of your minds, that you must fund what you want to remain efficient. If you do not, you will end up transporting your products by trucks, and that by far world over is the most expensive mode of transportation. Finally, in terms of upstream and KPRL, we have plans that will likely span over a period of 3 to 5 years of expanding that facility to make it a regional, we call it trading hub for oil and gas. What that would mean is we're trying to make it as vibrant as Fujairah or any other port in the Arab Gulf or Sikka in India. That will require investment. We haven't even reached there, but nonetheless, the government cannot fund all of these activities alone. There are conversations that are going on government to government with the Gulf states, as well as European private sector companies that can see us then exploit the capability of the storage facilities there, as well as the land, to expand our capability in the region. There's a captive power plant that we're in conversation with Kengen on to put onto the national grid. And we also have capability in terms of expansion of our strategic storage, so that in the event of any issues, as there have been wars even in East and Central Africa, countries like Sudan, countries like Rwanda and Uganda can consider putting product in Kenya as an extension of their country's storage for a period of 6 months. This then makes Kenya the regional hub for oil and gas, and KPRL is at the center of that. I think there was a question on exploration in Turkana, which the regulator would respond to in terms of the field development plan. But to assure you, there's more beyond what we have presented here in terms of what we do. I think it's possible, I mean, it's necessary for us to maybe tune in more into the strategic plans of the state utility, so that you're aware of what affects you, and we may try and do more stakeholder engagements. We are in Mombasa on Friday and Western Kenya after that, for you to be attuned to what it is that we are currently planning for the region, because our work does not end or begin only in Kenya. Pius, I don't know if you have anything else to add. You're okay. Okay. Sawa. All right, let me. Okay, in terms of rail transportation, by hierarchy or by rank, pipeline transportation is the cheapest, safest, most reliable across the whole globe, the whole world, and then followed by rail, and then followed by road. Waterway transportation is also very efficient. Of course, it takes a bit longer than a pipeline. However, there's also always issues of marine ecosystem and how it is that you ensure that there's no pollution. So we have provided pipeline transportation, and KPC has invested in a jetty that then moves product by Lake Victoria to Uganda, and KPA has invested in the ports of both Lamu and Mombasa. We're stealing from the rail wagons at different points of transportation. So all companies like Total and Vivo, who really used to use that method of transportation, decided that they do not want to use it. However, for Nanyuki, I know once in a while, Vivo still does utilize rail transportation for Upper Eastern area. And the question now to the national government would be, do they want to invest more in road, rail, or pipeline networks for transportation? I think the government has made a consideration and does consider pipelines the most effective, and that will ensure that we are still the leaders in the region. However, the rail options are available, whether from Mombasa or from Western Kenya. I know Kenya Railways has issues with funding because they're one of the ones that depend on the National Treasury for funding, so they have not been able to enhance their facilities from Kitale to Uganda, or even from Nairobi to other parts of the country. And I know that that's something that they continue to petition the Treasury to enable them rehabilitate their standard meter gauge railway. In terms of increment, I think I will leave that to Leonard, but I think your regulator is very aware of what it means to the consumer, and ultimately that's not 62 cents adjustment will hardly ever be felt in the pump price. So now the question is, how is it that they do it, and when will it take effect? I think Leonard can answer best.
Thank you, Zilpa. No, I think we are doing very well in terms of time management. We were to have questions up to around 12:30. So I think we can be able to take another set. I believe there's a gentleman I had locked out. But maybe just to respond to the question by Chami, was asking whether we are going to review the rates upwards for manufacturers. Yeah. What we are having here is a tariff that is going to affect the users of the petroleum infrastructure, KPC infrastructure, and eventually will affect the pump price. We've been shown the impact that it will have on the final pump price, around 62 cents. So if at all that number is going to be approved the way it is, you would see an increment, holding all factors constant, an increment of around 17 cents, from 45 cents to around 62 cents in the pump price. And that is going to affect all the users of the petroleum products in the country. So there is not going to be a separate tariff for manufacturers or any other segment of or investors in the country. Yeah. So those are the numbers that we are looking at, and it will affect petroleum users in the country. So we can do final set if time allows. 2-3 questions, then we call it a wrap. I see Wanambisi, then so Wanambisi, then you go to the gentleman I had locked out, then there's another hand up there, and lastly to you, then we call it a wrap.
Thank you. I just needed a clarification on the truck loading. You said that it will be paid in US dollar or Kenya shilling. Then my other query goes to you guys, to EPRA. You find that most of the payments we do to KPC as OMCs are in US dollar. You find like storage and aging fees, they still charge us in US dollar. What are you going to do so that we move away on the reliance of the dollar and we pay in Kenya shilling and let KPC source for its dollar in the market? Thank you.
Good afternoon. So my name is Festus. I just have 3 concerns. But before that, I would like to say, because we are the citizens, I think we need to be given more time to do the talking. So, because of that, I just want to say that to ask the question: what are the tangible resources that you want to put in place so that citizens can really identify with? Because I think once you are in office, instead of lecturing citizens, I think you should come to the citizens and tell them this is what we are doing, and we want money for it. So this tangibility should be predicated upon sustainable development goals, projects that wananchi can physically identify with in order to affect future generations positively. Like I was in Kilifi for a Christian mission, and I discovered that electricity has not penetrated in the area. And so people rely on kerosene for energy. But unfortunately, many petrol stations in that place, they are closed. So people have to walk very long distances to acquire the product. And I think, and very many other places in the country. What are you doing that, what kind of projects are you coming up with that will affect wananchi? Tangible projects. And then the second one is on the question of the setting up precedents that can haunt us for generations. We have like the road transport of petroleum products. When like we have had some people being burned to death, when your trucks they collide on the road, and people come to fetch fuel and they are burned. What are you doing to actually reduce such kind? We have also adulterated kerosene and all that because of poor packaging And like you see, somebody has to carry some bottle to the shop. Why can't you package your products properly so that people don't add water or other products into it? And then number 3 is an issue of climate change. Many climate change activists, they say that we need to heavily tax health hazards and heavily incentivize or subsidize eco-friendly systems. So your products are still, they still fall under those health hazards because of, it's not clean energy. So governments in the world are progressively transitioning into clean energy systems. But this one is just a comment. I'd like you to comment on it, because we still have a very long way to achieve that, to achieve clean energy. We still use these other products. So, but in future, what are you planning to do in considering that question? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Festus. There was another hand here. Yeah.
Thank you very much again. My name is Joshua Adem, again, from the Public Health. And this is just but a concern. And I think this is the right platform so that we get the clarification. About the tariffs you have mentioned there. Yes, they are good for our development. And my concern is I've gone across our neighboring Uganda here. And I think Uganda gets all their products from Kenya across. What we don't know here is the tariff for those transit goods the same as internal? And secondly, again, when you go to Uganda, you find the cost or the price for the consumer there is lower. And then now you find our citizens within the borders. Now they avoid buying in Kenya but go across to buy because there they feel it is cheaper than here. Yet all the products are from here. Now from the regulator, I think this is the good audience to know, to be informed why that is happening, because you see some of them are business people here and their products are lying in a stock for a long without being sold. So can you just elaborate, why is it that when I go to Uganda I can fuel my car at a cheaper price, I can buy paraffin cheaply, yet all these are from Kenya? Thank you.
Yes, Rafael. Yes.
Mine will be brief. I just want to ask how the regulator, you allowed 80 to 20 debt versus equity. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe just to assure Festus that this is your day, eh? And we're in no rush to wrap up this event. If there are still comments that you have, we could go all the way up to 5. Yeah, listening and addressing those comments. So don't feel that you are left out. If at all there are any comments or issues that you want to raise, floor is still open. And you know, I'd only noticed that we were winding up in terms of the comments that were coming in. That's why I said we would be closing around 1 p.m. But if there are still any burning issues, still the floor is still open. Yeah, so I think we can take those questions. First was from Wadambisi, truck loading, USD or KES, and the other fees, aging, why should they be in dollars and not KES? And I think maybe to respond to that, it's a valid question. I think it's a comment that we'll pick it up with KPC and see how we are going to address the currency, yeah, especially for the truck loading and those other fees charged by KPC. There was another question on from Joshua, I think, on tariffs for transit goods, whether it's the same for the local market. So there's a tariff that is charged to all the users of KPC infrastructure, irrespective of whether you are loading for transit market or local market. The only difference is if you are loading for transit market, you pay in dollars. Local market, you pay that fee in KES. That is the only distinction. Cost of product in Uganda compared to Kenya. Probably just to give you a snapshot of what constitutes the pump price in Kenya. One major component is price in the international market, which we have no control over. If the international prices spike, we would feel that impact in the country. Product cost constitutes around 45–46% of the overall pump price. Then you have, of course, the taxes and levies, which are based on the statutes passed by the National Assembly. Yeah, we have no control over those taxes and levies at all. At the moment, taxes and levies constitute around 41–42% of the overall pump price. Then we have oil market as margin. Yeah, we allow margins for these OMCs so that they're able to undertake and carry out their business, recoup their investments, and of course be able to run a business. Currently, the margins allowed is around 12 shillings and 39 cents per liter. It's around 6% of the overall pump price. Then we have what we call storage and distribution cost, where this element falls in. You also have the pipeline tariff. You have the transportation from the major depots to the retail station that is serving you. That component is very small. It's around 3 shillings and 50 cents at the moment, the overall number. And the 62 cents that KPC is asking for is in that 3 shillings and 50 cents. So Uganda, they have a different tax regime. If you compare their taxes and our taxes, they are totally different. Yeah. Product is the same. They are sourcing from the same market. So the product cost is almost at par with what we have here in the country. So the only difference now will be on the other parameters. Yeah, that will be the taxes and levies, and of course the margins that they allow their marketers. Raphael, on 80-20, I know you are used to probably debt being more than equity, but in this case you are seeing equity portion of 80% and debt portion of 20%. KPC is funding the investments majorly through internal sources, and that is equity. Equity. And if you looked at the numbers that Elizabeth was presenting, I think the return that we're even allowing on that equity is 10.5%. If you go to the cost of borrowing in the market, which is the debt portion, they're getting debt at around 11 point something. So that equity is even cheaper than going to the market to borrow. And if you are to go borrow commercially, at the moment you get upwards of 18–19%. Yeah. So I will invite, I don't know, maybe Zilpa to comment on the issues raised by Festus, saying that we need to undertake projects that Mwananchi is able to identify, with. What are we doing to counter adulteration? I believe this has been tackled. Stella, I would want you to respond on the issue of road transportation. What are we doing to ensure safety for road transport in terms of licensing, and how do you monitor and enforce safety? So Zilpa, you can come in first, then Stella, and probably you can give us a way forward as you do that.
If you followed what I was saying earlier, road transport is highly inefficient and also, as you've also clearly indicated, very unsafe. And also it reduces the quality of product across the length of that haulage. So if you're moving product from Eldoret to Kampala or to Goma or to Bunia in DRC, by the time it gets there, it's subject to all kinds of quality degradation. That's why I've indicated that in this tariff review, we are seeking marginal funding to invest in pipeline and storage infrastructure, because we do not want to go the road transportation way. Uganda, for instance, does not have a pipeline. They have to transport by road. They then have to incur the cost of not just the haulage, but where to put the product. So now is when they're thinking about putting up storage infrastructure in Kampala and Jinja. The cost of that, based on the primary assessment that they gave us, is about $1 billion, which they then have to go and look for in the market. You as Kenyans are lucky that Wisdom, back in 1978, established the infrastructure you have within Kenya Pipeline Company. So all you now do is maintenance and partial enhancements as and when they are needed. And these enhancements are coming, as I mentioned, off of the back of the KOT2 enhancements that were done by KPA, because in the vision of the former regime, it was then seen that we will outstrip the demand for the region if we do not invest in a larger port capability with attendant pipelines and storage infrastructure to manage regional demand. So ultimately what Kenya is doing is trying to remain ahead. And if we don't invest in these things, then we will run the risk of becoming a Tanzania or a Uganda or even a Congo, where we have to rely on other ports to import and move our products. And therefore, as Leonard says, an increment of 62 cents in the first year, and then gradually reducing to about only 1% of that increment in the third year, is essentially the price we're paying as an economy to ensure that we continue to run. If we did not, and I think this was even mentioned in our last forum in Garissa, the amount that you would be charged from a private sector investor, wherein they cover their costs, they cover their taxes, their repatriated margins, as well as any possibility for their own expansion, would be much higher than a government entity, and you are then safer being in the hands of a treasury-owned state corporation than, I guess, essentially divesting this infrastructure to private hands. Wherein Kenyans, again, as you mentioned, have the right to articulate their needs. So perhaps in the next finance bill, if it is deemed necessary, then these sorts of utilities can be put into private hands. But in our assessment, based on economic modeling, you would pay more as a consumer. Thank you. Yes, sir. Chesa Sachangwan. Okay. Yes, sir. Okay. Stella will ably answer that, and I think he's requested a moment of silence for the victims.
So, upon the request of Mr. Chami, please let's rise for a moment of silence. Let's be seated. Sawa Bwana Chami. So mambo ya Turkana bado inaendelea, majadiliano bado yanaendelea. So consultants are on board, and the final verdict, once the discussions are final, they will be made public. Lakini haijaachiliwa, mazungumzo bado yanaendelea. On the issue of road transport, that is not, it is not a single entity responsibility. It requires the participation, active participation of various stakeholders. Kuna the road agencies, kuna the local county governments, kuna NTSA, and obviously ourselves, we come on board. So obviously when it involves a petroleum tanker or an LPG truck, we do the licensing, both for the transporter and for the driver. That is issued by the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority. And in the event of an accident, we do carry out accident investigations. And where we see that compliance was not upheld, on various occasions, people have been, their licenses have been revoked. So that, and we do not do this on our own. So there are areas whereby maybe we've seen that there is a concern on the road, a safety concern emanating from the side of the road. We as EPRA are in contact with the various road agencies, whereby we highlight these concerns to the concerned agency for improvement so that we become safe. The road is safe, the driver is safe, the product gets to you safely, and the passerby or other road user is safe. So that is very active and ongoing. And with time, if he has allowed me to give the vote of thanks as well. And he has, yes? Maybe Zilpa, if KPC can do that. Yeah, so it's KPC. I think Madam Zilpa has said they can. Yeah. So I want to first of all thank you all for coming. I was saying Mr. Omar has allowed me to give the vote of thanks, so that you don't think that women are bullying men out of everything. So he has allowed me to give the vote of thanks. So I want to say thank you all for being here, that we have remained a full house up to this time. I know being in Nairobi, being in the city, everyone is always very busy, but you have made the time to be here with us. We want to thank you for that. I also want to thank our management for EPRA, Dr. Mutua, and our DG, who is out on official duty, for facilitating this process, as well as the board. And I also want to thank KPC management for being proactive with this measure and having the interests of the country at heart. So I want to thank you as well. I want to thank each and everyone who is here for making the time and being active. You know, sometimes someone can come and just sit down. There's no difference between a person and a table. But you made it different. We have been very active and made it robust, which gives for good discussion. And lastly, I want to thank God for giving us the gift of being here. Whatever we are doing here is not just for ourselves, but for the future of this country. So I want to thank God and everyone here for that. Lastly, there will be lunch. Lunch is available. And the tokens are being given at the reception. So as you walk out, please meet our Rosebella. She will be there to give you the token. Lastly, on 5th floor. Lunch is on 5th floor. Yes. Lastly, I want to request you to pray for us, to give us, finalize for us in a word of prayer. So, Karibu, please come to the front and close for us with a word of prayer.
So I'll just give the last order. Let's stand and have a word of prayer. Father, in the mighty name of Jesus, we come before you this afternoon. We say thank you for giving us opportunity to deliberate on the new proposals from the Kenya Pipeline Company. Father, thank you for giving us a gift of life and for bringing us here together to deliberate on these issues. As we go to a different destination, we call upon your protection. And most importantly, Father, we are calling upon peace to be across the country of our country, Kenya. We also pray for more resources to be available for HEBRA and the entire sectors under HEBRA so that they can have a service delivery to the community's members and even our country at large. Bless our country, bless our president, bless each and everyone who is in the top leadership to make this country better. As we go with us, and also we bless the food before us and before we take it. In the mighty name of Jesus, I pray and I believe. And may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen.